Hey, what up team? Coach Nate here. Today we are talking about how to transition into that minimalist zero drop running shoe, preferably without dropping your miles. That's right, we're gonna have our cake and eat it too. In this part one video, I'm gonna talk a lot about the running portion of things, the programming, things you need to think about even as well on the daily lifestyle. And then in part two, we're gonna get into some strength and mobility work to help yourself out. So before we dive into the specifics today, it's nice to review why going into a zero drop shoe may be beneficial, as well as some of the issues we can run into when we go into and in that direction. First of all, going into a zero drop shoe can get that big hunk of rubber underneath our foot out of the way. And ironically, this can improve our running technique. It can actually lower the level of impact we see when we run because we're just running more thoughtfully, more carefully every time we hit the ground. It can strengthen our feet, our calves, and our Achilles, which is just beneficial in general. And it can really just give us that positive feedback loop that we're moving well. So we see all these benefits. The downside of this is that if I've been in a shoe that has been incredibly supportive for extended periods of time, my feet potentially have turned to a little bit of a mush inside the shoe. They haven't been challenged, they're not that strong. My calf and Achilles is a little shortened because if I'm in a shoe, say this Adidas here, that's more of a traditional Adidas, where our traditional running shoe that has, like, let's say a 12 millimeter heel to toe offset. I'm in essence running with my foot in this little lift off the ground. And if all of a sudden I go zero, I've asked this much more length out of my calf and my Achilles. And if I'm lacking that mobility and that range of motion, starting to load that up can be very, very dangerous. So we're gonna talk today in this part one about what you can do to facilitate this process, both from a daily lifestyle as well as how to move these shoes into your running, preferably without dropping your mileage. Now, when we start to transition into lower level shoes, really what we're asking our feet and our body to do is to take up more work. We're asking our feet and our ankles to be a little bit less supportive, and to do that sustainably over time, we need to let this adaptation to occur slowly. And it's one of those things where it takes as long as it takes. So when I like to start with this thing, I like to actually start with not running, but just what I'm doing on the daily from a shoe perspective. If I'm home, can I be no shoes and can I be barefoot, right? So I've got no shoes on right now. If I'm just walking around, can I go ahead and just do that? If I am walking outside, I want a shoe purely for protection purposes. I might be in a pair of Vans or little slip-on shoes, something really light. Or, I use these strike shoes as an example all the time, something that's like pretty flexible and movable. This actually has a little bit of a heel raise, maybe like 3 millimeters or 4 millimeters top, so kind of a good transition. But my feet is working a lot in this shoe. And then, eventually, obviously, I'm trying to get to this zero drop shoe. Something like this Ultra right here, I'll be saving for my runs, which I'll talk about in a second. So walking around in the house, can I be in as zero drop shoe as possible? Can I let my feet start to adapt to that? All right, so the next place we want to start introducing more barefootness and minimal shoes into our athletic world is during our strength and cross training session. So anytime you're in the gym and you're not doing any run workout, get into as low of a shoe as you can. If you are starting to break in your zero drop shoe, that is a perfect opportunity to start going in there. You're squatting, you're lunging, you're doing step ups, you're on leg machines. Heck, even if you are on an exercise bike or anything else, just getting used to that is going to be a real benefit there. Now, an area where we can start to sneak a little bit of running in here is going to be your warm-ups and cool-down. Start with a 5-minute warm-up and 5-minute cool-down on the treadmill in your zero-drop shoes. Now you're actually starting to run in these things, which is going to be further supporting your time and your just day-to-day no shoes. And then eventually we'll start to talk about how we get you in your zero-drop shoes during your weekly mileage itself. So here's how we can start transitioning into that zero drop shoe into your regular runs without dropping the mileage. Now what this is going to take is actually you transitioning your shoes in the middle of your runs, or at least being open to that. So that means if you're going out to, say, the track, you're taking 2 pairs of shoes with you. If you're going to do a run, you're committing to doing a short loop first, circling back, changing shoes, and going back out again. If you want to go whole hog and just do zero drop shoes all the time, well, you're really going to have to cut your mileage back to make this thing happen. So let's say we're doing a 5-mile run. We'll just use that as an example. As you get used to this, what I want you to do is run in your zero drop shoe for the first 1 to 2 miles. That's going to vary depending on how confident you are about this change, how much mobility you have in your feet and ankles, which we'll get to in part 2. And then what you're going to do is you're going to circle back, put on your regular shoes, finish your run. So by just adding little doses of that zero drop shoe into regular training, you should be able to continue your run training for the most part without much interruption. As you get used to that and this feels better, instead of that 1 to 2 miles in your zero drop shoe, you're going to go 3 to 4, and then you're going to continue just 1 to 2 in the regular shoes. And we can start to build up this way. I can then add that into some of my speed work in a similar way. Maybe I'm going to warm up and cool down in my zero drop shoes, do my speed work in my regular shoes, and then I might flip that after a couple weeks once I adapt. Warm up and cool down in my regular shoes, do my speed work in my zero drop, so I'm limiting my exposure. The last area that I'm actually going to change and transition in my shoes is my long runs. If you're getting ready for the half or full marathon, stay comfortable in the shoes that you're more adapted to. And once you've got all these other runs and you're doing the 90 to 100% all in zero drop shoes, then we can start to tackle the long run itself. So a final few things to consider here is going to be shoe choice and terrain choice. Concrete, pavement in the city is going to probably be the most unforgiving. If you are able to mix it up with some dirt roads, some softer surfaces, even on a treadmill, that gives your body a little bit more give in this transition. The other thing to think about, when you go into that zero drop shoe, thanks to this day and age, like, you have options where you don't have to go the minimalist Vibram 5-finger. In fact, one of the reasons why I love Ultras is because they have a zero drop shoe, but they have shoes that offer different levels of cushioning and support. The Ultra Torn, for example, is a great, medium to long range shoe that gives you that zero drop, that just gives you that much more cushioning and support here, taking some of that stress off that calf and Achilles as you go. So give yourself, opportunities to be successful. I kind of showed you my other shoe that I wear. I like to wear these sometimes, but even though this has a little bit of the 3 or 4 millimeter drop, because this has such a low profile, this puts more impact to my calves and my Achilles than this one does. Finally, be patient with yourself. There's no fixed formula for this. It takes as long as it takes, and that is 100% predicated on how committed you are to the process, how well you're listening to yourself, and how good a job you do in the strength and mobility stuff that we get to in part 2. Remember, remember and thanks, what? Remember, just for watching this video, you, lucky day, get a 7-day free trial to our training club membership, where you can access all of our programs. All you need to do is click the link down below and sign up. If you liked our video today and you found it helpful, give us that old thumbs up. If you have any comments or questions, this whole minimalist zero drop shoe thing is tricky, drop them down below. We'll get back to you, and of course subscribe to our channel, because we have a lot more videos coming out each and every week on all topics around running, dedicated to making you that much better. Speaking of, I gotta go film part 2 of this thing, so that's ready for you. I'll see you guys in the next video.